My name is Allie, and today I'm going to be reading The First Strawberries, a Cherokee story by Joseph Bruchac. This story tells about how strawberries first began to grow on the earth, according to Cherokee folklore. This story is great for first grade readers. Before I start, does anyone know who the Cherokees are? Now, based on the picture on the cover of the book, what does the woman look like she's doing? Why do you think she is picking flowers? Okay, now I'm going to read The First Strawberries. Long ago, when the world was new, the Creator made a man and a woman. The two of them were made at the same time so that neither would be lonesome. They married, and for a long time they lived together and were happy. Then, one afternoon, the man came home from hunting and found that the woman had not yet begun to prepare their meal. Instead, she was out picking flowers. The man grew angry. "I am hungry," he said in a cold voice. "Do you expect me to eat flowers?" Now the wife, too, became angry. She had picked those flowers to share their beauty with her husband. "Your words hurt me," she said. "I will live with you no longer." She turned to the west and began to walk toward the sun. Her husband followed, but her steps were too quick. He could not catch her. He called her name, but she could not hear him. He went as fast as he could go, but his wife was much faster. The sun watched as the husband followed her. The sun saw how sorry the man was and took pity on him. "Are you still angry with your wife?" asked the sun. "No," said the man. "I was foolish to speak angry words, but I cannot catch her to tell her I am sorry." "Then I will help you," said the sun. The sun shone its light down on the earth in front of the woman. Where its light shone, raspberries grew up. The berries were ripe and looked good to eat, but the woman paid no attention to them and continued walking. The sun tried again. It shone down and blueberries grew. They glistened brightly in the sunlight, but the woman paid no attention to them. She only walked on toward the west, leaving her husband farther behind. Now the sun tried a third time. Where its beams touched the earth, blackberries grew up. They were dark and plump, but the woman's anger was too great, and she did not see them. At last, the sun tried its hardest. It shone its light down in the grass right in front of the woman's feet, and strawberries appeared. They glowed like fire in the grass, and the woman had to stop when she saw them in front of her. She knelt down and plucked one and bit into it. She had never tasted anything like it before. Its sweetness reminded her of how happy she and her husband had been together before they quarreled. "I must gather some of this fruit for my husband," she said, and she began to pick the berries. She was still picking them when the man caught up to her. "Forgive me for my hard words," he said to her, and she answered him by sharing the sweetness of the strawberries. So it was that strawberries came into the world. To this day, when the Cherokee people eat strawberries, they are reminded to always be kind to each other, to remember that friendship and respect are as sweet as the taste of ripe red berries. After listening to this story, who can tell me why the man became angry with the woman? How did the strawberries help the woman to forgive the man? How do you think the sweetness of the strawberries, sweetness of the way she feels when she is with her husband? Okay, so the reason I chose The First Strawberries is because first grade readers are at the stage where they're becoming more familiar with the act of reading and are beginning to develop skills in identifying and recalling information from the stories they read. The First Strawberries is great because it's short with very elementary language, which makes it easier for readers to understand what's happening in the story. And this allows them to sharpen their skills by pulling key details, drawing conclusions, and recognizing how the story appeals to their senses. The first center activity I created is very physically and verbally interactive. It's a level 1 activity, and it asks students to go out to the playground in groups with a guardian and find flowers, berries, or other natural plants and describe how the particular plant appeals to their senses, whether it be sight, scent, or touch, and also remind the children not to eat anything they find outside. The second center activity is a bit more advanced. This is geared towards level 2 readers, and it asks them to recall main events and subordinate details and then organize them in sequential order by filling in a flow chart. Then the students will write 1 to 2 sentences on how the events pertain to the overall presiding theme of the story. The third center activity requires additional work on the student's part. Each student will read another Joseph Bruchac story of their choice and then complete a compare and contrast chart between the two stories. This activity is especially effective with Joseph Bruchac because he maintains a theme of Cherokee folklore in his stories, which will allow students to draw more in-depth thematic comparisons instead of just superficial ones. The final activity is tailored to English language learning students. This activity requires students to use information from the first strawberries and tie it into their own culture to compose a new story that explains natural phenomena in a folk legend manner. This combines reading comprehension, cultural understanding, and English proficiency and creativity.